got a Berkey! Good morning, everybody. This is Holly from Fern the Camper. I'm Holly. This is my happier camper called Fern, and together with my husband Clive and daughter Thorn, we travel around in Fern, bringing you all sorts of fun things on what you can do while you're out camping. So today we are going to talk about the Berkey, specifically the Travel Berkey water filter, and why, if you have an RV, this is something you probably want to have too. Okay, so some of you may know that I started the Fern the Camper website, and that has articles about other RVers, tips on camping, tips on how to do your pitch and setup and look for everything that you need, and also interviews with other RVers. So one of my interviews was with a really fabulous family and their traveling Berkey. And if you don't know what a Berkey is, stay tuned. I'm going to show you. If you're interested in reading that article, I'm going to put a link down below and you can check that out at your leisure. So the Berkey is a water filtration system, and it's something that I had intended on getting 5 years ago when we relocated to California, and you know, things just happened, and I started comparing with other filters online and getting confused over the reviews, and I just put it off because Berkeys are not cheap. They are pretty expensive, and if I'm going to invest in a water filter, I want to make sure it's one that I don't have to upgrade just a few years down the line. So I did this article on this wonderful RV family, and then I knew that while I was editing the article, I knew that, come on, it's time for me to get the Berkey. So I did. Clive, I say, Clive, we have to have this. Do you remember me telling you about this Berkey? And he's like, yes, I remember. Great, let's get it. He's like, oh my gosh, how much are they? So we got a Travel Berkey, and it holds 1.5 gallons of purified water. And I'm putting this thing together when it arrives, and the instructions are a little bit not that clear. So just want to do a quick little review of the Berkey travel filter and some tips that I would have found helpful when I was putting my Berkey together. And I hope you find them helpful too. We got our Berkey! Yay! This is what it looks like on the inside. We have two charcoal purification elements on the top. And you can't see them now because they're in use, but under here we have the two fluoride, and I think it also filters arsenic and chlorine out, extra filters that you can do. So this one holds 1.5 gallons of clean purified water. It has been amazing. It tastes better than the crystal geyser we were getting, and it's just so refreshing to not have to grab another bottle of water from the store. We just fill this up with our handy dandy jug, and yeah, that filters pretty quickly and it's super duper clean. Okay, the instructions for the Berkey. There are not very many instructions, but here are some things that you need to know. It's doable in one day, and if you are familiar with filters, you'll crack this out with no problem at all. So, things you should consider before you follow these instructions. Number one, check your components. Is anything cracked? When ours arrived, it had a huge dent in it, and I was a little sad, but this will not affect the water quality. It looked like it was just dropped in the warehouse, and it just gives it personality from my perspective. But if you don't like that, check it over and send it back, and whoever you bought it from should be able to replace it and give you a fresh new one. Okay, next is after you've compared all your bits and bobs, are they safe and not broken? Do they all are they all present? For us, for the travel, we had 2 carbon filters, and we also bought 2 additional filters. Now the carbon filters, they will screw in the top, and you will have to it's not calibrate. There's another word for this. And if you don't do this, you will not get a good filter going on. You need to kind of flush out that charcoal and also let it sweat for the full 5 seconds under the tap. Let me tell you, it's tricky. You have to hold it by its neck while this thing fills up on your tap, and it's very heavy and very difficult to keep that seal on it. If you've got big beefy man fingers, you're going to be good with this. If you're me, you might struggle just a little bit. So there was some cursing, which brings me to my next point. If you have children, are sensitive children like dogs that don't like you being upset, are cursing, make sure no one's there in the room or your RV with you while you are preparing this. There are words that came out of my mouth that I have heard builders say and that I haven't actually spoken before. These are very naughty words. A lot of them came out. I had to make sure Thorn wasn't near me when I was preparing these filters. But before you follow the instructions on the filters, do follow the instructions for the filters exactly as they say. But before you do that, put in the tap and nozzle at the base of your Berkey. Trust me, this will save you a whole lot of pain later. It's really tricky. You do have to do it by hand, not by metal. For instance, this tool you do not want to use on your Berkey. It will crack the plastic. And you've got this beautiful stainless steel reservoir and tank for your water filter, but the nozzle at the bottom it's thick plastic, but it is plastic. And there have been a lot of comments on Berkey's website about this being kind of a cheap nozzle for such a beautiful equipment. If you want to upgrade that, I'm sure you can. I don't know how well the filter will work with that upgrade. If you're techie, you probably know whether or not it will work. But anyway, if you're putting together the one that comes with the Berkey, put that first. You have to kind of screw the back in super tight as you can by hand, and then you have to really crank the other bit up and around to make sure you have a good solid seal. But the tricky part is not to crank it hard. The tricky part is to not crank it so the plastic doesn't crack or snap. The first time we did this, I was so gentle with it. I didn't put it tight enough, and we did leak. We kept it over the sink, so it leaked into the sink, but I lost 1.5 gallons of water overnight through the tiniest little seepage that you would not have noticed if you did not put it there overnight. So do test out that as well after you get your components together. But number one is put your nozzle in place first. No, second. First is check all your components. Second is put that nozzle on. The instructions have you do that last. Trust me, you do not want to do this last. Get that out of the way so once your filters are on, you don't have to put your filters down and crack them on a surface somewhere or get them dirty and disgusting. Okay, moving on. The next thing to do is to actually follow the instructions on the filters. So you get 2 charcoal filters with your Travel Berkey, and there are 2 holes in the top reservoir. This is not one hole for your charcoal and one hole for an additional type of filter, because you can get an additional type of filter, which is this one. Ding! This is specifically for both the 2 charcoal filters that come with it. You will be using both of those components. It's not here's a charcoal filter and here's a backup filter for later. No. This is 2 charcoal filters for your Berkey. You will need them. Use them. They are amazing. Make sure that you prep them correctly as per instructions. 20 seconds, filter, sweat, clear, rub, it's all done. Then you put it inside. Putting it inside, putting your filters, your charcoal filters inside the Berkey, in theory, is so easy. You take the top half of the Berkey, you plonk in your charcoal filter, you screw the thing on the thread. You should be easy, right? It's not easy. That thing jumps all over the place. That thing rolls. That thing is insane. And then when you do charcoal too, oh my gosh. Ah! Okay, but it's doable. You know what? If you have a second human who can take bad words, have them hold the Berkey for you, the top reservoir, while you're able to screw that in. And make sure that is tight, just like the nozzle below. You want it as tight as you can get it without actually cracking the plastic. And that will create the good seal that will make sure your water goes through the charcoal so it can filter properly. Okay, if you had extra elements that will clean out the chlorine and fluoride and even arsenic, these are the white filters you buy extra. These, you'll be surprised, maybe you won't, do not go on top in the reservoir. They actually go below. Haha. Just like the charcoal reservoir or the charcoal filters on the top reservoir, you will need to prep these other white filters. This time you hold them under the water, I think for 20 seconds to filter everything out, and then you do it on both sides, because you have one side will thread onto the bottom half of your charcoal thread that's sticking through the bottom top, and I will show you that here. Ping! And the other side is just a spout where the doubly filtered water comes through into the reservoir. So this is another tricky little thing. Don't throw away your instructions. You will need to do this correctly. When you screw on these extra elements, one for each of the charcoal filters, you have 8 rotations underneath. You don't take off the screw and just screw it on as tight as you can. No, 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 no. You don't do this. You will break it. You will break it. And they're expensive. You have exactly 8 revolutions. What does that mean? 8 100% churns. And no more and no less. If you do it more, if you want to get it up tight because you I want it on there super secure, you will break it. You will ruin your filter. If you do it too loose, not enough rotations, not exactly 8 rotations. I mean, I did them in half rotations. I did like half is 1, half is 2, and I counted out loud, and Thorn was in the room at this point because I had stopped cursing, and she found it quite funny. But I got it on there. They were exactly 8 rotations, each of them. No more, no less. And yeah, it should be fine. If you're too loose, if you do just 7.5, heart-stopping moment, your filter will not work fully well. It will leak kind of at the top. If you do it tighter than 8, you will crack your nice extra filter that you've put on there. And you could also leak some gross stuff into your water, from what I understand. If I am wrong, please let me know by leaving a comment, because I sometimes get things wrong. So there you have it. And then at that point, you just fill the top reservoir. I leave a good inch or 2 because as I'm pouring, it's filtering, and I don't want to have my clean water kind of backing up on the system, and I don't want to put too much pressure on it. So there we go. We fill it in the evening. In the morning, we have beautiful clear water. This stuff tastes even better. We used to get Crystal Geyser water, and we liked it because there was no fluoride added to it. There was a type that we had no fluoride added. We're really particular about not having fluoride in our drinking water, and our chloride, our arsenic, our other bits that tends to be in drinking water because it's drinkable, but it can actually make you sick if you're really sensitive. So this has made such a good difference to our drinking water. It tastes so good. This is awesome. So you can do also, if you want to make sure your filter is working correctly, put a tablespoon of red food dye in the top tank with your water to be filtered, and it should run clear. If your food dye comes out, there is something wrong with either the elements or the way it was installed, and you might want to check that your threads for the charcoal are tightened up, and try again. Don't tighten up your arsenic filter, you know, the white one below, because that will crack and break it. But even if you did crack and break that one, in theory, you should not have any red dye coming through. It should all be filtered through the first charcoal filter stage. So if you have that red dye coming through, you need to check your installation, make sure it was done correctly, tightly, but not too tightly. And then if it's still coming through, contact the company. There's something wrong. It should not be allowing that red dye through. Okay, so I think I have covered everything about the Berkey that I know of. If you have any other experiences with a travel Berkey, with your Berkey, or if you have a different water filter that you think is best for your RV, please let us know. Leave a comment below. It's very helpful for other people who are still deciding. And also, I just like to read your comments. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe and keep drinking clean water. Cheers.